Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Amanda. I am the Communications and Public Involvement Director for the City of Fort Collins. And we're excited to bring to you today a forum with 3 of our finalists for the Deputy City Manager position. So we're going to get started here in a moment, but first I'd like to introduce my co-moderator, Jenny Sawyer, who's going to tee off the first few questions for us. Jenny?
Yeah, and thank you all for being here. We are just going to start, and we're going to let our candidates introduce themselves as they go through these questions. And for this first one, we'll just start in this direction. And it's the tell us a little about yourself, your experience, and what attracts you to this position.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thanks, Ginny. My name's Jason Nutt. I'm the Assistant City Manager for the City of Santa Rosa. We're in Northern California, about 60 miles north of San Francisco. The current role that I have right now, I manage a portfolio that includes the Transportation and Public Works Department, the Santa Rosa Water Department, Human Resources, and the Recreation and Parks Department. And so it's a fairly substantial organization. Historically, I have also had an opportunity to work with our Planning and Economic Development Department and actually be the Recreation and Parks Director for a period of time. In my experience right now, I've been able to come and visit Fort Collins a couple times. You have a fantastic community, great organization. The city is beautiful, and it is just one of those locations that has drawn me away from the further west coast to try to find, that future of career that brings together all of the organizational structure that I've been excited to try to see and that I've been looking for throughout my 25 years in public service.
Thank you, Jason. Pam?
They taught us how to push the button and I still didn't do it. Hi, everyone. My name is Pam Davis. My pronouns are she, her, and it's really great to be with you here today. I called Fort Collins home about 10 years ago and really was sort of a life-changing experience for me. And so the idea that I'm back sitting up here is sort of a pinch me moment to think about the opportunity to work with you all once again. I also would love to introduce my wife, Leanne, my son, Russell, and my yellow lab, Mavis Davis, to this fine community if I'm lucky enough to be selected. What brought me to my local government career really stemmed from being a young gay person in Arizona who could experience the power of government to both make life easier and harder. And that really drew me to a life of public service that showed me that government does have the ability to make life better for people if the right people are leading it. And I want to be a part of that energy. And so really that passion has led me to a career in public service that has spanned a couple of states. My first full-time job was right here in Fort Collins. And that experience really taught me the power of strategic planning, how amazing community engagement can be when taken seriously. After leaving Fort Collins, I was in a community of about 50,000 people in southeastern Arizona called Sierra Vista, where I managed the budget there. Completely different environment and an environment of decline and dependency on a military base. But in that, I learned that innovation can happen even in an environment of decline, even in a space that does not necessarily have all the sort of advantages of a more urban environment. From there, I moved to Goodyear, Arizona, where I really got to work on some unique public-private partnerships in a very rapidly growing community just west of Phoenix. And then finally, for the last 4 years, I've been in Boulder, Colorado, right down the road. And if I've learned anything in Boulder, it's that it is possible to maintain a culture of innovation, even in the face of numerous crises piling on top of each other. But it's incredibly hard work for a government to both be reactive to so many challenges that face us and yet still deliver services every single day proactively. So that full ride has brought me back to this seat, and one of the things that excited me most about this potential position was the job brochure really read differently than the Fort Collins of 10 years ago. There was a stated commitment to equity, to inclusion. There was a lot of language around sharing power with community and co-creating solutions. The commitment to the triple bottom line has persisted, which I'm thrilled about. And I just want to be a part of helping Fort Collins be the best of local government. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Tyler.
Thanks, Ginny. Hi, everyone. My name's Tyler Marr. I'm currently the interim deputy city manager here in Fort Collins. I've been with the city organization for 7 years. Prior to this interim deputy job, I'm regularly an assistant city manager working with our information and employee services group, so our internal services, as well as running the city's legislative sort of policies and agenda. But that is not where my work in local government actually started. I worked for the Parks Department in the town of Castle Rock in late high school and all throughout college in the summers. And I would say it was those experiences, being out mowing open space and then graduating to mowing turf grass, which, is a graduation for sure. There is, that sort of passion and the just the effort that all those teams put in, combined with some informed professors who knew me well enough to point me in the direction of local government, sort of steered me in this direction. So I got my undergraduate degree here in Fort Collins. Fort Collins has been my home for the majority, all aside from a year of the last 13 years. I love it here. I love this place. This organization is a special one. Just our commitment to this community, both and our ideals and our vision, right? Like, we're a place that actually takes very seriously what we put on paper in terms of plans and putting them into action. And that's what has driven me to apply for this ongoing deputy job. It's really that. I feel like I've got more to offer in terms of connecting the council's vision with the important and critical work that staff does every day. And, everyone watching this probably feels the same that the three of us do about this community, that it really is a remarkable place. And so to continue to get to serve in this capacity would be an honor. And I appreciate everyone being here today to listen to the three of us.
Okay, Pam, I'm going to start with you with this next question, and I'm actually going to have you move your mic a tiny bit away from you because we're getting a little bit of feedback. They pick up pretty much everything. So, okay, please share with us your vision of excellent customer service and the steps that you'll pursue to ensure that level of service from Fort Collins.
Thank you. Sound check. Is this better? We have the opposite problem with our council microphones in the Boulder council chambers, so I appreciate it. So in terms of customer service, I think certainly the word customer is a unique relationship when it comes to local government. I think that while we very much are community members or customers, we have an obligation for a two-way relationship to also really listen, understand how they experience the service we provide, and continually improve to be better. I think for me, customer service has a lot to do, of course, with being responsive, but it's also a lot about being transparent, having processes that are easy to understand and access, having a communication that is two-way so that as experiences are had, if there's something that doesn't go as well as we would hope it would throughout the course of our work, that we have a feedback mechanism to hear that, to listen to it, and to commit to doing better next time. I think in terms of approaching the deputy city manager position, customer service is a stated value of Fort Collins. It's part of the foundation of this organization already. For me, where I think I could add value is really around my ability to be a connector. So I think great customer service in local government comes from city employees having a really broad understanding of everything the city does, not just their own job. And so helping to build those connections so that when one of our community members is in need, regardless of who we are in the city, we have that awareness to get them the help that they need, even if that help doesn't fall in our job description. So that connection, I think, is a really crucial piece. And then finally, I just think customer service is absolutely best when it's done with a personal connection, a smile, optimism, energy, enthusiasm for the work that we do. And I would bring that.
Thank you. All right, Tyler.
So I love this question, in part because I think it's something that local governments don't historically do a phenomenal job at. And I would say Fort Collins is in that boat too. I think we've got room to grow in this space. I think my general philosophy is we have to streamline our processes, which will simplify the experience for the customer, and we have to standardize that approach across the entire enterprise. And I can dive into each of those components a little bit. I think it starts with process, right? Like, we have 30 plus departments in the city organization that have developed processes for really good reasons to achieve noble goals with oftentimes stated purposes, but they sometimes have been done in isolation, and they oftentimes have been done without considering the added complexity that can give to our residents. And so that's where the simplicity comes in. I think a positive customer experience has to relate to simplicity. And if it's not done enterprise-wide, and that's sort of the standardize, I think we're missing something. So I would continue to do what I believe I've done in my assistant city manager role, and that's be a real advocate for our digital transformation efforts here at the city, in part because the world has changed and continues to change. And if we can't have a simple experience for our residents via a digital platform, preferably a mobile device, but if it has to be on a desktop, so be it. And so I think it's continuing to make those connections and help be an advocate for resources that allow for that standardization, because change management is a real part of this, right? It's not done just with the snap of a finger, as much as many of us wish it was. And so I think it's continuing to be an advocate there, and using the perch of the deputy city manager role to use that horizontal view to make connections that others might not be able to see.
Thank you. All right, Jason.
Yeah, thank you for that. I actually think both Tyler and Pam said things very well, and customer service is an area that I've based my career off of. I started off very early on as an assistant engineer, working directly with members of the public, getting phone calls, meeting them where they're at, responding to phone calls in a timely way. And as I've grown up and through the management ranks, the focus is to ensure that the entire team also operates in that same way, that they provide honest, open, and frequent customer service, so that folks are getting that two-way response to questions and inquiries that come in, even if the response that goes back is it's going to take us some time to figure out. Having gone through the traffic engineering world, and I spoke with Fort Collins traffic engineer earlier today, it's an area that there's usually not a response that you can give within a 24-hour period. It's going to take a period of time with study, and I don't think the communities feel that that's a negative. I think that as long as they're looking at the work that you're doing and that you're constantly persevering to try to come up with response, that's what helps make good customer service. Also within programs that I've been responsible for, we've answered phone calls. While I have implemented phone trees, the phone trees always ended with a real person on the other end of it, but it helped manage the flow rather than just coming through a single individual at the front counter. But we were always the department or departments where others called because they could get real live people. And I felt that that's something that needed to implement its way through the rest of our city. And we've started to encourage that with other departments and put folks back in place. I've also been involved in 2 digital platform systems where we're incorporating app-based community input and response. Those have both gone fairly smoothly. The most recent one that we're working on does have an interface with our work order management system within our field services division. And so we're getting real-time feedback into the hands of the public. And we're continuing to work through some of the IT components. As Tyler said, I mean, there's certainly pieces there that are hugely valuable to our members of the public, to our community. And there are certain technical aspects that you've got to work your way through to get there, but it's all achievable. And we've had great success in working our way into that. And I think being able to implement something similar here in Fort Collins has huge value to our public. And I'd say the last piece is being able to find information and make it readily available to community members, whether it's on the website, whether it's a data dashboard, whether it provides feedback and information on specific projects that are occurring, that provides real-time information, or at least up-to-date information, so that folks can track what's going on. And all of those pieces are items that I see as being valuable and important customer service aspects to a public organization.
Thank you all. Tyler, this one will start with you. And the question is, can you describe diversity, equity, and inclusion work you have been involved with, including some of the challenges and outcomes? If anyone ever wants a question repeated, please say so.
Thanks, Jenny. Yeah, I think in terms of DEI work with the city, my path with that work began early on, several years ago with the previous council, with the adoption of a community trust ordinance. That was pre-George Floyd's murder, but there was already a emphasis of that council to really want to take a deep dive with some of our interested community groups and our historically marginalized community groups around our police handbook and sort of our police policies. And so that was a multi-month effort that really tried to bridge connections with the police department and those groups, but also really try and open up from the city side of things to say, where can we get better at this spot and where are we missing the mark? Because that, at minimum, it was not accessible. I think I'm proud of the work our police force does in Fort Collins, and I think we have many leading practices. And still, if it's not understandable to folks why we're doing certain things or how we've chosen to do certain things, we're missing a mark and have an opportunity there. So I think access speaks to some of those challenges, and that's work that I've also tried to incorporate when leading the Information Employee Services service area. Internal services are not the first spot people think of oftentimes when they're thinking of equity work, but working with all of the departments in that service area, recognizing that it's a core part of how we do, of how we do business, and equity, it just has to be embedded. I just talked about digital transformation a little bit. Making things more accessible is a part of equity work. Having 50 social media accounts from the communications angle, or having 38 unique accounts that a resident can sign up for through our various digital presences, if you will. That's probably not a word, but that is not accessible. And therefore, asking folks to do that who are maybe trying to speak English as a second language, maybe trying to make ends meet as it is, it just doesn't work. And so I think that's the opportunity, is helping it not be one other thing. It's helping it be an integrated part of how we do business every day as a city organization.
Thanks. Yeah, Jason.
And so the DEIB, or the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging component of the public service, is something that is really important when you're in Northern California. We have a high diverse population. In particular, we're about 38 to 40% Hispanic. And so trying to create a space where we have inclusion, not just from gender, race, BIPOC, it helps us in opening up our organization and making us a more viable, long-term, forward-thinking community. And it's fairly new to the organization that we have. How we have started is we hired an organization, a professional company, to come in and help create a program for the city as a whole, both from an external facing but an internal facing, to help all of us better understand the issues relating to DEIB. And I found that very illuminating. I'll admit, this is a new area for me. This is an area that, as we've been looking and getting deeper into the conversations of what diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging mean, I've been able to grow personally and better understand how it's going to benefit and impact me in my career and long-term goals. As part of that program, I've served on a citywide committee. That committee is a cultural and inclusion committee. We're looking at city internal programs and practices. We're having conversations internally with staff about how we may be able to change our program, our mission, vision, values, how we can look at our hiring practices, how we can make substantial adjustments to be more open within those DEIB programs. I've also gone to the step of going through a 21-day equity race challenge. I found that to be very illuminating. It showed me areas that are blind spots for me historically, and it gave me an opportunity to begin to grow out of that space and to start looking forward. I do think it's a very important organizational shift that we've got nationwide, and I'm excited to be part of that as we continue to see that incorporated and integrated into our organizations moving forward.
Thanks, Jason. Pam?
Thanks for this question, and I certainly appreciate the sentiments around the embeddedness throughout the organization. This isn't a project or a task for government to accomplish, but rather a way of doing business. I think diversity, equity, inclusion work is the most important thing we can do in government. And the reason I say that is because the inequity we experience in society was created by government in the first place. And I think that we owe it to our communities as public servants to take a really hard look to recognize that history and then to consciously unwind the damage that we have done in the past. My diversity, equity, inclusion work has been broad. Certainly within the city of Boulder, I partner very closely with our equity staff and the rest of the organization on implementing our racial equity plan. Specifically, and Tyler mentioned this too, we've been through a journey with our police department in particular. And in 2019, I had the privilege of partnering with our equity officer on reimagining a new form of civilian oversight of police. And what was amazing about that work was it was generated by a lot of anger in the community, but what resulted was incredible partnership with our internal affairs staff, with really honest and wonderful conversations with our PD leadership, and great conversation with our community too, about all of us recognizing that what we wanted together was a police force that served the community, with officers that were well trained and had the work in front of them, that they recognized that it was a partnership type relationship. So that was hugely impactful to me, particularly as a white person, to engage in that work and to work in the community, and so to really learn and grow myself. I also am the executive sponsor of our tribal relations work in the city of Boulder, which has been an incredible opportunity. We partner with 14 different federally recognized Indian tribes and have memorandums of understanding with those groups in terms of access to open space, historic and sacred lands, and really also work to build capacity within our organization to understand the unique place that Boulder is and the tens plus of thousands of years history that predated the city, and our obligation to honor that and to kind of steward refreshed relationships in that area. I also serve as the city's LGBTQ plus executive liaison with the community. That's been really impactful work for me. I never dreamt when I was younger that part of my job description would be to make people feel welcome wherever I go. And the fact that I get to do that every day is outstanding. I've taken that work one step further personally, and I work with some colleagues around the country. We just incorporated a nonprofit called Civic Pride that serves to be an LGBTQ plus professional association for local government professionals. And so when we connect at a professional level at conferences and through trainings, we bring content to other city managers, other public servants, to help all of us get better at DEI work. And so it's again, I think my passion is making me wordy, but I think it's really outstanding opportunity. I'd be really eager to work with the amazing team here on the developing plans and programs here in Fort Collins, bring that experience, but also learn from all of you.
All right, Jason, I think we're back to starting with you. So for this question, what have you done to build relationships and partnerships in the communities that you've served? And if you could just share a specific example.
Thanks for that. The key for me, as we talked earlier, is about customer service. It's making myself available, present, responsive. And I think it's that personal interaction that I've had with the community members, with our business organizations, with our nonprofit organizations that has helped create and generate a relationship that we can move forward. Some of the areas that I've had success in is working with Catholic Charities, which is one of our homeless service providers. They actually run our homeless shelter. They provide substantial, they are our primary go-to when it comes to homeless services in our community. They just opened a brand new facility in our downtown to help incorporate those services and incorporate other aspects, including health service. And they've been a great partner. I've done my best to be proactive, working with them to cross barriers for some of their implementation, which included a shelter expansion during COVID. We actually doubled the size of our shelter with a fabric structure during that time so that we could segregate so we could socially distance the population. I've also worked with our downtown organization. It is a downtown business organization, slightly different than the organization that's here, but nonetheless the same concept. It is a business owner and Chamber of Commerce run community group that has value invested in our downtown. And so I'm one of the primary liaisons looking at how we're operationalizing their specific interests in trying to improve our downtown. quite frankly, to look more and more like Fort Collins. I won't be shy about saying what you've done here is very outstanding. And then another, just as a different example, working with a community action group that was born, one out of a disaster and one out of an initiative. We work with Coffee Strong. Coffee Strong is a community organization that grew out of the Tubbs fire disaster following 2017. We lost 1,500 homes in a specific community, and those community members rallied together and created their own nonprofit called Coffee Strong. Our focus point there was to try to help them not only understand their personal rebuild process, but to be able to look and begin to brainstorm and discuss how we're going to rebuild that public infrastructure. And so I provided the support on the public infrastructure side. My colleague came in and talked about the private resident reconstruction side of things. The other group that came out of a process was, I was talking with the Parks and Rec team earlier today about the golf course that you have. In our case, we just recently changed our golf course operator. We have a significant capital deficit, and as I made a suggestion on how we might fill that capital deficit, there was a fairly significant group of individuals through a Facebook series that came out in about 2 days. They had 4,000 members. And so working directly with them on a daily basis in an effort to try to recover and try to get them to understand, try to see exactly what that initiative was. And right now the outcome is fantastic and outstanding. We've had a great working relationship ever since that initial fun that we started with. And I'm sure we'll hear more about that in one of the questions tomorrow. So with that, I'll pass.
Thank you, Jason. All right, Pam, do you need me to repeat? Are you good?
I think I'm good. Yes, thank you. So I one of the things that draws me back to Fort Collins certainly is the commitment to partnerships. One thing I'll say, if I've learned anything, it's that the right time to start developing a relationship with a partner is now, before anyone needs anything. So, you know, I think something that I would really want to focus on if selected for this role would be to start that relationship building on day one. Understand who people in the community are, what their needs are, what resources we all bring to the table, and how we all like to work together. My experience with partnerships is certainly wide. I think in the city of Boulder, most recently, you know, the COVID-19 pandemic, of course, stands out. That was an environment where as we realized the crisis that was in front of us, I think a lot of local governments, including our own, recognized that our relationship with our public health agencies in the past were not always a regular strong thing. And so as the COVID-19 recovery and response manager, I worked really hard to develop both personal and organizational relationships through public health with our colleagues over at the University of Colorado, with many nonprofits in the region who were going to help be those sort of people closest to our community to help make sure that we were hearing about all of the needs that were happening. And so through that work, you know, we really emphasized ensuring that our partnerships were leveraging resources for the people who most needed them and not sort of checking the box and expecting folks to come to us. And so we were able to engage in a really unique collaboration to help through that pandemic. I mentioned our tribal relations work, so I won't go back into that, but that's certainly been an outstanding partnership. I get to facilitate a group that is regionally committed to the healing after the shooting at the Table Mesa King Soopers in Boulder. And we have an outstanding partnership with victims advocates, with the Kroger Corporation, with victims' families, as well as the sort of public agencies in the organization to think about long-term memorial planning, to check in regularly on the health of the community, to speak with the DA's office about progress in that case, and to sort of build that healing environment across the community. But I'll round out with probably my closest partnership, which ties to my role as the executive LGBT liaison. We have an outstanding nonprofit in Boulder County called Out Boulder County. And the partnership that we've established with them originated in our attempts to get to that desired 100% on the Municipal Equality Index, which measures the inclusivity of a city. What has come about, though, are some really unexpected advantages because of the relationships that they have with community members. Our partnership within the city is literally saving lives, because people in crisis who trust out Boulder County as a trusted voice are able to work through them and the relationships that we have in the city, in our police department, in our city manager's office, to get people direct help when they need it in a safe environment. And so I can't say enough about those nonprofit partners and the way that if we can be trusted partners for our community organizations, they have more trust from our community members than we often do. And so how we can build those respected networks to help people in need, I think is really tremendous, and often underused in our communities.
Thank you. Tyler, do you want me to repeat the question?
Nope, that's okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Amanda. So yeah, Pam alluded to this. Fort Collins is the community that it is because of the way we partner out in the community, whether that's with our business community, whether it's with our nonprofit sector, whether it's with our advocacy groups, right? I mean, it has shaped Fort Collins over the last several decades for the better, almost without fail. I think Pam also alluded to this, like it starts with relationships. Partnership and relationship might seem synonymous, but one sort of succeeds the other. And so you can't just pick up the phone when something is dire. That starts with coffee meetings. It starts with knowing what your partner organization's priorities are. And so I've been fortunate in my time at the city, whether it's through running the legislative program or just day-to-day work in the way that the city organization sort of expects us to operate, right? You have those one-on-one relationships. You serve on sort of cross-functional and cross-industry boards. And that's it helps for those moments when you do need to make the call. Now, the reality is sometimes if we work in a political organization, sometimes you don't have that luxury. And so something I was tasked with leading a couple of years ago in the summer of 2020, our city council at that time disagreed with a county decision in terms of the siting of the behavioral health facility. 7-0 resolution. We'd like the city to consider alternative locations, and we'll provide those. Well, that was a small little big section around we'll provide what those alternative locations will be. And so that's when partnership from sort of a cold call standpoint had to come into play. And so bringing certainly county staff on board, other partner municipalities in the county, as well as our healthcare partners that were going to be staffing the facility. And so the approach that I took in those instances, when you did not have all of those established relationships, some of them we did, but is just to be really clear around what we're trying to achieve, sort of what our direction is from our elected body. I think that can help sort of cut through some of the political grandstanding that might otherwise have been there, because again, this was a long ways down a process. And so through that clarity and through that sort of, well, understand some of you don't agree with the fact we're here. If we can set that aside and be really clear on if we were to recommend alternative locations, we want everyone in this group to feel really good about that. And so I think providing that clarity, providing that structure for those relationships and partnerships, that applies whether or not it's organic or whether or not it's one that's longstanding. I think we were able to complete that summer project, and we're proud of the recommendations that we made, regardless of sort of what the outcome was on that.
Thank you.
My turn, and Tyler finished, so Pam must be starting. Okay, I got it. I am going to go to, please share your views of leadership versus management and describe how you have approached each successfully.
Thanks, Jenny. So for me, it's not a versus, it's an and. So leadership and management, I think, are very much two sides of the same coin, and without one, the other isn't successful. And so what I mean by that is, my view, generally speaking, when I hear leadership, I think about vision, I think about supporting change, I think about addressing a challenge that an organization has not yet dealt with. And I also think about people and sort of how they feel as they're engaging in that work. On the management side of thing, I think about a sort of structures and systems to ensure that work gets done, that a vision or a problem can be turned into incremental progress, can be turned into a program or a policy. And that really that's how the work gets done. I think every single person who works in a city organization is both a leader and a manager of something. I think that all of us have the ability in our work, from managing our day-to-day work to managing a team that we're a part of, to leading colleagues through a difficult time, even as peers, that you really need that balance of both. For me, I think having the breadth, and particularly in a role like deputy city manager, it's really important to always be able to describe why something is happening. And to me, that's sort of where my leadership expertise comes in, but also to be able to articulate how we're going to get it done and with what. And that's the management side of my brain. And so for me, as I've grown in my career, I have always sought to lead from where I am by identifying opportunities for growth, for improvement, but also to manage myself, to ensure that I am maintaining integrity and completing the work that has been asked of me, to manage a team or a project I'm on in a way that makes sure that we achieve milestones as the community expects from us. But there's a constant interplay between both of those qualities that's really important.
Thank you. Tyler.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question in part because the title of this role is deputy city manager, right? And so it's easy to sort of default to that. I would make a quick argument that that's largely around helping Kelly manage the affairs of the city, right? It's the deputy city manager is certainly both a leader and a manager in real terms. I think of it in terms of the difference between relational authority and positional authority. I mean, you can have a position on the org chart and have very few followers. Hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully everyone on our org chart that manages people has followers and leads them well. But I think it sort of manifests itself the way that Pam indicated, right? You manage process, you manage systems, you manage outcomes, you lead through vision and values. And I also think that accountability takes its shape in both areas a little differently, right? And I think where the deputy city manager role is probably most important is around holding leaders accountable. This position is a leader of leaders, and so it's ensuring that work is being carried out according to our values. It's ensuring that the stuff we all just talked about around equity is being integrated and is being achieved through the various work we're carrying out. It's not that there's not accountability on the management side of things. I think there is. Outcomes do matter and results matter. And I think when you look at this portfolio, the deputy city manager has to manage through those processes and whatnot too. The last difference, and I think we're still learning how to do this well at the city organization, but it's something that I think the executive team has spent a lot of time on, is the change management component. And people are unlikely to want to follow a change from someone who's not leading them, right? Like managers are not going to be great, like people who are solely managers, I should say, are not going to be great stewards of a change management process. That comes from developing some of the relationships we just talked about, starting with why, and we can pull out the rest of our leadership library, the taglines, but that stuff's really important and helping just folks believe in something to follow. And then ensuring we're all of our oars are rowing in the same direction.
I feel like this is a good book club discussion. Love it. Jason.
Yeah, and how do I follow what they've already said it all, right? I mean, this is a question I actually have on my interviews for my mid-managers, is try to describe for me the difference, because the lines are blurred, especially when you're deeper in the organization. It's trying to understand, what does leadership mean versus management. I think at this level, exactly what you both said, right? Leadership is that establishment of direction. It's establishing and identifying the path with which we're traveling on. It's understanding what that goal is and what the vision might be. From a managerial side of things, it's the operationalizing those particular long-term visions into tangible product. It's especially when you're deeper in the organization, it's sometimes hard to understand that, because they talk about leading a team. Well, leading a team in their mind is, I'm walking in front and I've got 3 people behind me. We're going to go and take care of this product. That's not necessarily leading the team. Leading the team is saying, here's the vision that we have for this ongoing program and product. And that's the end product, that's the end goal. That's what we're trying to get to. Now, the question from the management side is, how are you going to get there? And what operation does that look like in order to accomplish that specific task? And I see a lot of lights go on when I'm asking this question to the mid-management teams that I work with, because they do start to see the difference. And they understand that when you sit down and you're working on a project or an initiative or an ordinance, and the job is to actually create, construct, reorganize, and present, that's managing that particular initiative. Visionary, that bigger picture, that longer term plan, that long-term path, as you mentioned, it's rowing in that right direction, setting that end location. That's the leadership thing that's important for us to do. And good leaders can always find a way of having folks understand, visualize, and see how they're going to operationalize their path to get there. And so I love the question of leadership and management. So thanks.
All right, I'm thinking one more question and then we'll have maybe wrap up comments. Okay, so Tyler, I think we're starting with you this time around. So describe your ideal workplace culture and how have you brought reality to that ideal?
That's another great question. So I think my ideal culture is one that I'll use the word fun to start, because I think that matters, right? If we can't laugh with one another, if we can't enjoy the presence of one another's company, it's not a place that I want to work, at least for very long. So there's that element. I think there's meaning in work, and that's something that is amazing about having worked for the city organization over these last 7 years, right? Is that common purpose, that serving this community that we all love so much. And then the third part is accountability, and I'll say that from both a challenging aspect. Like I want my work to be challenging, and I want to be able to debate ideas, both in public and in private. And I think that that's really important. And then I want to be held accountable in terms of just my work product and standards and how I'm interacting with others. And I think other people generally want that too. And so I think how I've worked to bring that to fruition is by practicing what you preach, right? And so it is being willing to have those hard conversations. It's being open to feedback. And it's leading other leaders in that way too, ensuring that we're spending time learning about one another in addition to just talking about strategy. That's how you get at some of those fun elements. And because again, I like to be made fun of. I know not everyone likes to be made fun of, and that's what you learn spending social time with folks as well. So I think that sort of combination of things is an ideal work culture. And I'll just say, I think the city is very close to having that ideal work culture. It's I wouldn't have been here for the last 7 years if I didn't feel that way.
Thank you. All right, Jason, same question.
Yeah, I'm really a fan of collaboration and partnerships. We're part of a team. We're part of a group that's attempting to try to accomplish these large-term goals, these initiatives, and if you're not operating as a team, if you're not collaborating, working together, then it makes it far more difficult. I had the opportunity to watch, a series of council meetings and workshops, and when I got to see the police chief stand up and make a comment that when we sat around the table and we looked at all the offers that were being made, it wasn't good conscience for me to ask for what my strategic plan said I should be asking for, so I scaled back to this. I've had that before. I've sat around an executive team table where the police chief looked at me and he said, "You need 4 more public maintenance workers. I'll take 2 police officers off so you can get those 4. Because if you're not doing your job fixing the streets, it's hard for me to get the equipment where it needs to be." It's that level of collaboration and participation. It's looking beyond my internal specific siloed portion of the organization and trying to help one another. It's reaching across that table because, utilizing Santa Rosa. I'm a resident of Santa Rosa, have been for 22 years, right? My goal, my purpose isn't to say I'm a public works expert, I'm a licensed traffic engineer, licensed civil engineer. Instead is to say, I think I understand why that development would go there, why it should be affordable, why you may want to have ground floor retail, why you may want to look at how you incorporate a homeless service shelter at this spot or a safe parking program over here. Because as a resident of that community, it makes sense to me. So when folks get into a table and they just put the lens on their specific skill set, we actually lose out the value of that particular individual. So it's that collaboration pushing through and the encouragement to get people to basically speak their mind, to participate, to be part of the solution set regardless of where their subject matter expert lies. And it's usually a much stronger organization when you're able to pull those pieces together. And just in what I've been able to see in watching these few council meetings, talking with the teams going on the tour today, I mean, Fort Collins has that right now. And it seems like a fantastic organization and one that would be great to be part of moving forward. So that's it's something that's very exciting for me that I've been able to see here, even through the course of today.
Thank you. All right, Pam.
Thank you. So I would happily work in a combination of all of those cultures. So thank you very much. You know, I think organizational culture is an interesting challenge because at the end of the day, it's a collection of people, and people have all kinds of different needs and feelings. And so when I think about my role as a leader and creating culture, it definitely starts with those I interact with the most. I believe in sort of leading the person who's in front of you and being adaptive to the needs of a group or of an organization. With that, I think some common themes that I really aspire to bring to life in an organizational culture. One is a culture of celebration. Public service is really hard work, and it can take a lot out of us. And if we do not regularly take the opportunity to turn around and say, wow, look at what we have accomplished, celebrate, lift up people's achievements, that's something that sustains us to keep doing the work, and can often be overlooked. And so I really, I would want to bring that to any team that I'm a part of, that culture of celebration, that it is just as valuable to take the time to acknowledge and commemorate a milestone as it is to move on to the next thing. A second is I really do well in a culture of optimism. And I think I embody that as well. So as public servants, again, it can be hard, but to have that belief of one of these days we will get to yes, we will get to the finish line of a project, maintaining that belief in an organization and not sort of falling into a trap of cynicism or worry, but really maintain that sense that the future is bright, I think is a necessary part of being in public service. Finally, I could not agree more with Tyler starting out with the word fun. I think that at the end of the day, the more people enjoy their daily experience at work, the more they will deliver for the community, the more they will want to stay and grow and be enriched. And I think that fun can happen in all kinds of ways. I think for me, it's really an opportunity to bring individual creativity into the workplace. I think my crowning recent cultural moment at work was I was at I had the opportunity to share at a national event a great idea from Boulder, and I rewrote the lyrics to the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air theme song to be a rap about Boulder's community court. And it was an opportunity to showcase a very real, very hard thing that we were working on in the city, but do it in such an outlandish way that people not only remembered that the assistant city manager of Boulder was rapping, but also that they remembered our community court and they called and they wanted to hear about our work. And I think that blend of, again, being willing to be made fun of, but at the same time, like tying it back to the work and tying it back to the people every time is what needs to happen.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. We're going to nail this almost just right. So lastly, you have all obviously prepared very well, and we're just lucky to have all three of you here. Give you each a few minutes. You know, maybe there's one question you were really hoping we'd ask and we didn't, or something you want to share. So if you want to just wrap up here with some final statements, now is the time. And we're starting with you, Jason.
All right. You know, it's always hard to contemplate moving from a community that you've grown roots in. I have been in my current community for 22 years. I've spent quite a bit of time focusing my career on trying to be in that location and to make it the best possible community I can. It's been a very rough 5 years. It has come with a lot of challenges, and challenges that most communities haven't had to deal with. And that's helped build me and make me stronger. I've been given far more opportunity than I would have hoped for. And I say that because you don't hope for disaster, but disaster brings around opportunity and learning and education. And I've unfortunately had way too much of that over the last 5 years, with 3 fires impacting our city, the pandemic, and the localized flood event that impacted us as well. We've opened our emergency operations center and declared disaster far too many times. In fact, in the last 5 years, more than at any point in my career, which now spans nearly 30 years. And so it is a place that I call home, that I've looked to survive with, to rebuild, and to really focus a great and prosperous future in. With that said, it is exciting to come and have an opportunity to participate in a community that has that future right in front of you. You are on the verge of being there. And I would say in most cases, you've accomplished that task. And now the goal is to try to refine and build it even greater and better. But you're there. And to be able to come in and be a part of that would be a phenomenal opportunity. And it's very exciting to be at this place and to be able to at least get through with this great group of candidates to this place and be able to tell you my story and talk a little bit about the value that I could potentially bring to the organization and the excitement that I have for being a potential candidate for this position. So thank you for this opportunity. I'm very appreciative.
Thank you for that. I also want to start with gratitude. Fort Collins really shaped me as a professional when I was here almost a decade ago. And I had the opportunity to be raised in one of the best sort of homes for local government in the country. And then I sort of ventured out and got to experience what community looks like in a lot of different places and different environments. And it's been a really powerful journey. The opportunity to come full circle back here, but to bring with me knowledge of managing a budget with a declining population, to bring back with me the knowledge of creating a public-private partnership to fund park infrastructure in a growing suburb that can't keep up with its growth. To be able to come here with the incredible experience of 4 more years on the Front Range in a peer community that has really built and cultivated an ecosystem very similar to Fort Collins. It's almost a poetic sort of experience to be sitting here right now. And it would be a real honor to call you all neighbors again, to bring my family here and to become a part of this community. And to be able to serve Fort Collins, to be able to look at the incredible achievements of this local government, but then to ask the question, how can we do better? And who aren't we helping? And who can we help more? That is what I would want to do with all of you if I'm lucky enough to be selected. And if not, I thank you so much for your hospitality and for introducing me to some amazing people. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you both. This is, and thank you, Amanda and Jenny, and all of you watching and here in person. It's an honor to get to spend an hour with you just talking about sort of our ideas and how the 3 of us think we can make this place even better. Fort Collins, I will say this, we've got a ambitious 10 years in front of us with our adopted plans, with our stated goals, so many things that I think are going to require a dose of that pragmatism that I think keeps me here. I've always loved that. We're ambitious and idealistic, and yet we recognize to achieve idealism, you really have to get down to brass tacks and pragmatism. And so, that's part of what's kept me here. This organization has been so kind to me, both on an individual level and then in terms of just being able to raise my hand for asking to work on crazy projects and standard projects and other things. And it's just been fulfilling. And so to get to continue to serve this community in this role would be a real honor. I choose to live in Fort Collins. I think I technically have to live in Fort Collins in my current role, but I still view it as a choice because I love this place. I love that we've balanced, the juxtaposition between the built and the natural environment. I think we have room to grow there on the built side in particular. But the work that's ongoing to achieve some of those goals I mentioned. Like it's meaningful and it's hard in many cases, and so I think by mentioning fun earlier, I hope that's by no means to indicate that I would say probably the three of us, we don't take this stuff seriously, right? It can be heavy, but I think my last 7 years here in terms of building relationships with all of you and many in the community as well, I think I'm up to the task, and I would welcome the opportunity, and thank you for your time.
Well, thank you all so much. This was great learning a little bit more about each of you. And thank you all for joining here in person and online. We do want some feedback. So if you could visit ourcity.fcgov.com/DCM, we have a questionnaire there where you can provide some feedback. We'd love to hear from you in the next couple of days. And with that, please join me in giving a round of applause to our finalists here. Thank you all. Have a good one.